That's it. We're here. We're live. As
Hello,
promised
everybody.
half an hour ago. How brilliant is that? As I said then, I wish we could give you better notice in future of these things occurring. Well, you never know. That might happen. Welcome, everybody. There's
Hello.
9 of you I can see out there already. Do let us know
Already.
who's there so we can say hello. I'm Michael. He's
I'm Rupert.
and welcome to a Standing with Stones open house live thing, in which
Yes.
we shall talk about many things, including Rupert say
Well, one of the things I thought was really interesting. No, three other things that I thought
three
were really
things.
interesting. There's more Denisovan stuff coming up,
Okay,
um, which is exciting. There's Stone Tool stuff coming up. In fact, there's a number of Stone Tool related things that have
yeah,
come up. One, in fact, I think is Mark there?
yes, he is.
Hello, Mark. Mark posted a thing up this afternoon in the community about some capuchins that have been observed in another kind of tool use, which
Okay,
makes them, that's the fourth species of, well, the first group of monkeys, because it's been
so
in capuchins more than once. But that's really interesting when you see a species moving into the Stone Age, you know.
that's
So
very old stuff. And number 3.
number three was, what was number three? Um, uh, uh, number three, yeah, number
Well,
three
while you
was
try to remember number 3, can I say welcome to Janice, to Chris, to Mark, as we mentioned, to Nikki, to Sal, to Riss, Dorman, John, and Richard. Richard says, asks if you're sober. I think he is. I think he is.
I am at this moment in time depressingly sober. Yes, thank you for asking. I have to say, yes, if I look less than sober, it's because I'm utterly exhausted, if I'm honest. Uh, but
Good evening,
I
Margaret.
won't
Very,
bore you with
very
all of
glad
that.
to
Hello,
see you.
Margaret. Um, yes.
Have you thought of what number 3 was? Yeah.
Number three was we were stepping back prior to even humans with the. I never knew this. This is not new news, but this is going back to 2015, I
Hello,
think.
return viewers guide. It says hello, standing with stones. Yay! Pleased to see you. Fantastic. Sorry,
Return viewers
Rupert, I
guide. No,
interrupted,
that's all right.
as I always
Uh,
do.
it comes from Kenya actually, and they have got stone tools from 3.3 million years ago, which predates humans. There you go.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that's something we can talk about a little bit later on. I didn't know anything about that. I just picked it up by chance when I was looking into something else.
Richard,
And
Richard says he can give you pills for your exhaustion.
are they legal? Thank you, Richard. Um, Yes, it's actually astonishing how much stuff, you know, when we start researching whatever, and it can just be something that's come up in the news, and what we never do is just trust what, this sounds mean, but we never trust what the journalists are saying, and so we just try to follow it back to source
Dive a bit
material and
deeper.
academic papers and what have you.
Yeah.
And it is astonishing how, you know, you find something and you start researching this, and then it takes you down another avenue where you think, well, if I didn't know that, and it's a piece of research from 10 years ago, but if I didn't know that, and Mike didn't know that, and other archaeologists I've asked, well, they didn't know that. And I think, well, it almost certainly isn't public knowledge then. It's just, it's a paper that's been written and is sitting getting dusty on a university shelf somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Mark says, imagine if we ever find a pre-human dwelling or other structure. That'd be mind-blowing.
yeah, can you imagine? Can you imagine? It's because why not? You know, when you find the anomalies, out there. See, I mean, some of the things in the Americas, for example, that just fly in the face of academic convention. And you think, well, what? We just don't know. All we know that we've got these things, but no, the makers are seldom present. They haven't left any traces behind. So you just don't know. Just don't know.
So that's all exciting stuff. So, I mean, do you want to treat those one at a time? I mean, the interesting thing is, of course, 3 subjects, that have come up, and we're sort of stepping right outside our sort of Neolithic-y, megalithic-y sort of era thing. Do not be alarmed, folks. It's not a permanent thing, but it's interesting what comes up when you're digging around. Are the things that you are bubbling in your brain, are they coming up on, are we going to be talking about them in the next podcast?
Some of them.
Yeah.
I thought the the pre-human tools is not really podcast material. I mean, it could be. We could do a special about that kind of stuff, actually.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting because it brings up an interesting point. I don't know if I want to sort of bring this.
Why not?
Up now is that as for the last 18 months, as we've done podcast after podcast, we have found ourselves stepping outside that remit, the Standing with Stones remit of being orientated towards the stones and megaliths, and finding ourselves expanding both ways, both forward into the Iron Age and way back, as I say, into the early hominids and pre-human thing. As it fascinates us, I think we'll always gravitate back to the stones and back to stuff, but it's hard to ignore all the other interesting stuff that comes out, and there is so much coming out about our very early prehistory and all the rest of it. To which end, being aware of that, and also being aware of potentially new audiences coming in for us, which we're trying to gather, as you know, on Patreon, YouTube, and all the rest. We have decided, as you may have noticed from the logo up right there, we've just changed our branding a bit from Standing with Stones, and it'll be a gradual change over the next few weeks or so, from Standing with Stones to being the Prehistory Guys. It's a title that we think just represents it. We do what it says on the tin a bit more.
We do.
For somebody that doesn't know us that well, Standing with Stones can be a bit obscure as a title. It worked very well as the title for the film and an umbrella under which to do the podcast. For those of you who know what we've been up to and know what we've been doing for the past few years, and anybody that's been acquainted with that. But for new folk, and we really want to be bringing new folk in, we have decided to on that little upgrade, shall we say?
Yeah. Although we're not ditching the Standing with Stones brand. It's still very much a part of what we do, but it's a part of us rather than us, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. So watch out for that changing all over the wherever we pop up on YouTube, Standing with, on Facebook, Twitter, wherever. Let me just catch up with a few people. John Swift says Dolman's in Pennsylvania. Right, let's do that.
Well, yeah. In fact, you don't want to start me off on the Americas, really, do you?
No, really don't.
Not at the moment.
Yeah, we need to do specials on that. Yeah. Hello, Shay. Shay says,
hello, Shay.
Thanks both. A good interruption during these long winter evenings.
God, yes, and they've only just begun. Yeah.
So that's one change. I mean, you know, if we're examining our own navel a bit, we're a bit inward turned. There are a couple of other changes that'll be coming up, but perhaps we'll talk about those a bit later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So. So yes, we are the prehistory guys standing with stones. Yes, we are. Return Viewers Guide.
We are.
Is there a
Well,
better name? Is there a better name? Return Viewers Guide that we can address you by? Return Viewers Guide is watching us on YouTube. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So
Yes.
to return to matters deeper and older.
Mm. Do you know the thing that just it shouldn't have shocked me, but it did shock me in a good way, was that those of you that watch us or listen to us regularly, you know that we we bang on a lot about the Denisovans because this part of our ancestry that we know bordering on nothing about. We have scant remains, but they're there in our genome. And they've been finding more and more that the Denisovans and Neanderthals interbred a lot more than was previously thought. And the most exciting thing is that little finger bone that they dug up in the Denisovan cave, in the Denisova cave in Siberia, back in 2010, well, that was sent to the Max Planck Institute can't off the top of my head remember where it is, but they did a complete genome blitz on it. And they found, first time one has ever been found, that this was a 13-year-old girl when she died, 13 years old, and she's a hybrid of Neanderthal mother and Denisovan father. The first time that has been
It's
found.
bonkers, Rupert. It
just
completely blows my mind. You know, first they established that this is a new hominid. Am I using the right terminology?
Well, yeah, I mean a hominin,
Hominin.
but
Yeah,
hominins are still hominids, but
from and extract that from one piece of finger and a few teeth. Is that right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then to
a
later
finger bone and
on,
3 teeth.
and then to later on discover that that being was a hybrid.
Yeah.
And is that a direct hybrid? She is the direct offspring of.
Yes, yes, yes.
Wow.
She was Neanderthal mother, Denisovan father, and they've been able to see from what else have they found from that? They found that the Denisovan father also had Neanderthal in his ancestry. So somewhere,
Flipping heck.
So now bearing in mind that this girl died 90,000 years ago. So what else has come out? Because there's so many branches of research that are happening because of this, and so different things that they've found out.
Heidi Wilkinson says Denisova and Neanderthals sure loved to party.
Didn't they though?
Just.
Didn't they though? But they found that the Neanderthal mother was more closely related to Neanderthals from the West in Europe than those actually in the East, or in fact the ones already living in the area, because we've got loads of Neanderthal remains, but just just next to nothing of the Denisovans, and yet they've been able to find all this out from one genome.
You're welcome, Don. Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciated. Carry on. Sorry.
No, that's right. I'm just trying to think what else has come out of this. They have found that so basically you've got I need to be doing this the right way around for the camera. But so if you've got the Denisova cave in Siberia. Now, Neanderthals basically were taking up land going west from here. Denisovans were predominantly going east from here, and this was this kind of meeting ground. I'm not saying that they weren't broader spread than that, but that's essentially, if you're going to average things out, then this was the melting pot where they seem to be meeting and interbreeding. Now they've also found what they did. You've got to love it when academics really get their act together. They sequenced her genome, and what they then did was go all around the world to compare with the genomes of living people, so thousands of people, to see what they could tell from the Neanderthal inheritance and the Denisovan inheritance. Where were these traits being handed down?
Oh, my.
Now, from that, they've found that Neanderthals and Denisovans interbred more than once. They don't even know how to describe this, but it's not necessarily in more than one period of time, although it will be that. But that's not the issue. It's the fact that there are these two distinct waves of interbreeding where, so for example, the inheritance of genes or traits within the genome, the inheritance up in China and Japan is quite different from the inheritance that they've found down in Papua, say. So they know that it all came from the same subspecies, but what was actually being handed down is different in those two geographic places, which tells you quite specifically that it happened in different waves. Otherwise, it would have been the same commonality that was being
passed down,
spread through. So it's. I just think it's just so exciting, that they've. And it's something that as Mike said, a finger bone and 3 teeth. Have they found anything since then? I'm not sure they have, because they found some stuff in China recently, didn't they?
Chris Brooks says it's clear then that their DNA was close enough that they could produce offspring able to breed, unlike, say, donkeys and horses.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, this is something that we touched on a couple of podcasts ago, that there are ghost species in our genome. So, for example, we can look into our own genome, modern humans, and we can say that we are X% Neanderthal, and it varies where you are in the world, but average 3%, some people 5%. I think some people are a little bit more than 5%. Denisovans, I think it's maximum 3% is showing up in some places. Now, the thing is, those are species that we know, but within the human genome, there are a total of 7 species so hominin ancestors. So hominin as opposed to hominid. A hominid is basically, you could call any primate a hominid in some ways. So gorillas, that's a hominid. If we can interbreed and create a viable offspring, it's a hominin. We're close enough subspecies that we can interbreed. And that applies to anything at all. Spiders, like money spiders, Lineafiidae. But if they're a small enough group closer together, they can interbreed. They're Lineafiinae. So that difference between the D and the N, that goes across the whole of natural history.
Do you know, folks, he does this when we're on filming together. We'll be going down a path looking for a dolmen or something, and he spots some badger crap.
Hey,
or a spider's web, which we're not allowed to break. We have to duck underneath the spider. We have to
yeah,
negotiate all the
damn right.
arachnids and the wildlife there ever is to bring you films about
Absolutely.
megaliths, you know.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah,
Anyway, carry on.
that's it. And it was just that it's that thing that so you've got all these other ghost species, and the reason they call them ghost species in our genome is because we can tell by looking at our DNA that they're there. The genetic markers are quite clearly they're not Denisovan, they're not Neanderthal, they're not modern human. Obviously, they're part of modern human, but they're a modern human as in Cro-Magnon-esque, that kind of thing. But there are these other species who we only know they're there because we can see them in our genome, but we've found no physical evidence for them in the fossil record. We haven't dug up a bone that we know about. They might be languishing in the back rooms of museums, having been dug up a
Yikes.
century
Of
ago.
course, yeah.
We don't know. But they're ghost species. We just don't know who they were, where they came from, or anything else.
Diorman Roby says Labradoodles of the hominin family.
Labradoodles.
What?
Labradoodles.
Thank you for that, Diorman.
I'm sure I should be getting that. Yeah.
Anyway.
It's exciting. It's exciting. And
Yeah.
And who's coming in? I think this is my father gate crashing a live broadcast.
Or not.
Or not.
Oh, yes.
I'm doing a live broadcast at this moment in time. If you want to say hello to a large number of people,
I say hello to a large number of people, and I will now leave you in peace.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I've got nothing to say about that, though, Rupert, because you're the one that's been following that thread.
Yes, and it's as with all these things that are coming out purely because of modern technology.
Yeah.
You know, that it is such a new field of study.
And of course, I think it's kind of the danger that we face, actually, because we're getting so outfaced with so much information coming on that I think to a certain extent, I don't know, I'll speak for myself, it's scrambling my brain. You know, I think,
Yes.
well, is that an interesting thread to follow? Is that an interesting thread to follow? How is that going to make our boat go faster in terms of our, understandings, really? Or is that just academic? Is that just of academic, what's going to keep our, lovely viewers, our Patreon friends
Yes.
happy? So all these questions go on. It's all fascinating. But and it's important to report upon. But the fact that I can't, bring it together into a story kind of scrambles my brain a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends to a certain extent. If something, for whatever reason, if something has really excited me,
Yeah.
like finding out that this little finger bone was a hybrid. I mean, but if something really excites me, then it's like, well, if it's exciting me, then I hope that it will be exciting you as well. Sometimes you get a whole string of things where the amount of information is it's so fragmented. You can see that it's important, but you just don't have enough dots to join them together, or you might have enough dots, but you can't actually see the line, where the line should go through those dots. In which case, we don't say anything because, it's like we have insufficient data to complete your request. It's just sometimes it just gets too dense.
And to speak to your point earlier, Rupert, about we see the headlines as quite a lot of other people do. And the headlines aren't necessarily the best guide as to what's actually going on behind the scenes. Finding out what is really going on behind the scenes requires finding the actual papers written by the archaeologists and experts, who have been involved. And that is some papers are quite deep. Well, they are deep. They have to be. That's their purpose, to
Yes.
to join all the dots as far as
Yeah.
they understand them. And doing the research so that when it comes to, so we're not just spouting headlines back at you and giving you back something that's, behind the headlines and authentic. That
Mm.
it it's a return on investment thing. I think
Mm.
that sometimes we can go off on not wild
Yeah.
goose chases. I'm not saying that at all, but it takes up time.
It
And
does.
we've got to
It
be
does.
careful about what we
But
choose.
but also, it is so important to um, to take things back to the source research,
Yeah,
because journalists can be um, I think sometimes they're just a little bit hasty because they want people to read their headlines and grab them. Sometimes, and this is going to sound really pompous, but sometimes it's because they haven't actually understood what is being said, and they've just made a leap because they perceive it to be the same when it's not. And a good example of that actually is something that was also only published very recently. Some of you may have seen there was an article about a phenomenal discovery in the Ukraine. This enormous settlement, you might as well call it a city. It's huge, and the way the place was built it shows very, very clearly that there's a hierarchical structure within this society. So you've got circular dwellings that are satellites to large rectangular social spaces, and it's a very lengthy, complex paper. But the article that we first came across was actually headlining this as the evidence for a democracy in this Neolithic culture. And my immediate reaction was, well, how does any sort of communal space infer or imply democracy? You're not going to look at, say, Tiananmen Square and say democracy. So where are they getting this from? And when I went to the source material, that doesn't say anything about democracy at all. Not a word. It's not even implied. And so it just shows that because somebody was talking about delegation of social control, if you like, that this journalist inferred from that, this journalist inferred democracy. It's not what it means. So you do have to be very careful, and as far as possible, you do have to go back to prime source, because it's the only way you prevent it from being Chinese whispers. And that is so important, so important. But yes.
So that was the Denisovin bit.
Yes.
Yes. Do you want to go on to tools?
Tools.
Yes.
Yeah, we can go on to tools. Yeah, well,
No, we
Mark.
want to be brief about them because it's a bit of a sort of a deep dive otherwise.
Yes, we can be brief. I'm going to talk about. We'll kick off with Mark Summerton. Hi, Mark. Mark posted an article in the community this afternoon that is a new discovery in Panama, where they've seen capuchins. I think these were white-faced capuchins, and they have been seen using stone tools to break shells and the like. So this is another species demonstrating tool use. Now, interesting thing about that one in Panama is
does that go beyond, you know, just using things to break things, or is it, or have they been observed to be
they're
cleverer
not
even than that?
They're not napping, if that's what you mean. They're not using tools to make tools, but so it's, you know, it's a tool for extracting food, you know. But they are now the fourth non-human species. I think it's that it's just the fourth non-human species to be observed with tool use, and it reminded me of the ones that were found back in 2004. I had to look this up. I didn't remember how long ago it was off the top of my head, but it was 2004 that
that's a pity. It looked as if you did. I was impressed for a moment there, Rupert. Oh, ruined it. Carry on.
I think they were from Brazil, but capuchins, South America anyway. But the capuchins, different species of capuchins, black striped capuchins, I think. Anyway, these capuchins were found using an anvil stone, so it's this big boulder with a flat top that had depressions in it. Now, nobody's suggesting that they drilled those depressions, but the depressions were made from repeated hammering. Now, what these monkeys were doing was they were collecting nuts from the forest over that way, and they were going to the river a quarter of a mile that way and bringing back cobbles, so, you know, large enough stones that were worn smooth by the water, so they could actually use them as a good tool. And hello, Leica.
Sorry.
And so they were putting the nuts in the depressions in the anvil stone and breaking them up with the stones that they'd got from the river. So that is actually an enormously complex, thought-out process, that it's food from over there, tools from over there, to the work surface that's here. You know, it's major, really. So what, you know, when you're seeing now for today with that article, thanks, Mark, you know, that it's the fourth time that we have seen a species come into the Stone Age. You know, it's fantastic. Yeah. It is. It's really exciting.
Which leads you on to the third thing, really, of, the
third one did my head in.
Okay.
And this was the...
You're going to be using tools anytime soon?
And again, you see, this is not new news. This discovery is from 2015, and I didn't know anything about it. Mike didn't know anything about it. Well, why is this not public knowledge that in Kenya they have dug up stone tools, so worked, do you know what? Can't remember that. They're probably not flint, but whatever the stones are, they're probably chert of some description. So these are worked. There are blades and there are fragments of napped surfaces, and they're 3.3 million years old. They predate any other tool ever found by 700,000 years. They're not human.
Yeah, not human. And let that ring about a bit. Not human.
Not human. So where you see, so just talking about the capuchins coming into the Stone Age, well, clearly it's not a uniquely human thing. What you need is an opposable thumb, probably. But that's probably all you need, isn't it? I would think. So again, they found the tools. They haven't found any bones associated with them. There's nothing to say, who, what, or anything. Just these tools. So 3.2 million years old.
Yeah. So what that's all saying, bringing that all together, because it's all fascinating. That is all fascinating stuff. Bringing it all together you're beginning to imagine not this thin thread of evolution that leads up to us, Homo sapiens, but a broad spread of tool-using animals, only one of which, actually at the end of the day is still standing.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you've got a whole spread of, say like apes or monkeys today. You've got a whole spread of them.
Yeah.
And then there's only one left in a few million years. There's only one of those species left to tell the tale. Or struggling to find out what the story is.
I think one of the extraordinary things about the history of tool use in humans, though, is, and I still can't really get my head around it, and that's the Herculean axe, which was our it was a tool that came up with, and it was just so, a shape of tool, a bi-faced hand axe, basically. And obviously, well, it just worked. The thing about the Herculean axe is that it remained unchanged for 1,000,000 years. 1,000,000 years. 1,000,000 years. You say, what? In the whole of 1,000,000 years, did nobody think, hold on a minute, I can improve on that? Yeah. Or 1,000,000 years. Nobody thought, well, hold on, if I knock a bit off that, it makes something else. No, it's just 1,000,000 years, one tool. Can you imagine? I can't imagine anything being unchanged in 1,000 years, let alone a 1,000,000 years.
Yeah. I'm always going on Amazon for something.
Yeah, the latest Flint gadget. Yes.
Yeah. There's a question amazing from Catherine. Catherine Woodruff. I haven't read it through, so here goes. What about crows who drop nuts on the road to let the cars break open the nuts?
Yes.
I think there was a video out of Japan. No thumbs, but they're using the cars as a tool. Clever fellows.
That is.
I didn't know about that one, Catherine. True. Thank you.
It's absolutely true, and in fact, they've been filmed doing that in quite a few places. It's an interesting one because I think I wouldn't really say that they were using the cars as tools. I think that they are exploiting a situation. They've recognised that that this will work. The thing with crows is that they're actually, I think I'm right in saying, the corvid family anyway, that I think they're the only species who have been actually shown making a tool to make a tool. So to break a stick in a particular way, to do something with another stick. I don't think that's been recorded in any other species. Now that sort of tool use, like when monkeys snap a twig to get a bend in it so that they can put it in the hole of a tree to get termites out or something. That sort of tool use is as opposed to I don't even know how to articulate it beyond that, but I don't know. But Margaret, you say if you think that's a fair distinction. It's that thing that dropping something in the path of something is still damn clever. I just question whether that makes the car a tool as opposed to them exploiting a set of circumstances, because it doesn't work every time, does it? Sometimes they ping out to the side and the crow goes down, picks it up again, flies up and drops it back down again. Actually, there's one lovely piece of film where they're on a zebra crossing. They're using a zebra crossing where they're actually trotting out into the road and putting the nuts down when they know they're safe and they don't have to dodge the traffic. Where was that film from? It's just, they're so clever. You can't call anything bird-brained anymore.
Anyway,
Yeah.
time is moving on, Rupert. I mean, we've really gone outside of our remit now. We've crossed over into other domains.
Prehistory guys.
The pre extreme prehistory guys.
Natural history guys.
Yay. Actually, I was gonna kind of bring it on home, bring it back. As you know, we're not long off the tour. We talked about it last time. The tour we had so much fun on, taking 8 American friends from Orkney down to Wiltshire. And we talked a bit about, what we got back from that and all the rest of it. Actually, you may have noticed it's been a bit quiet. I've not been on social media. Rupert hasn't. And in fact, I think this is the first thing we've done since the last time we went live, just after we got back. So, apologies for being quiet. Output will increase. One of the things that's taken us away from broadcasting and being out there more was almost immediately that we got back. We started putting the bookings in place so we could do it again next year. So quite a lot of frenzied activity went on in the week or so following getting back, booking hotels and tweaking the itinerary a bit and making sure that soldiers were in a line so that we could offer the tour again next year to folk. So.
Yeah. Yes, we should hasten to add that this was at the request of the Archaeology Channel, not because we thought it was a good idea. And the reason we needed to do it so quickly was because you cannot imagine how difficult it was to actually find hotels that weren't fully booked. So, we needed to get in really early. One of the big reasons, of course, is you start up in Orkney, but of course you've got all that activity going on, all the excavations going on at the Ness of Brodgar every year. And that's just an island covered in volunteers going up to that. They're taking up all the hotel space. Yeah. Along with
I think
all
there were a few left over when we were there. I think there were a few still in the Air Hotel anyway. Yeah.
I think there were. But so that's kept us busy. There's been all sorts of other odds and sods that have been really tying us up one way or another. But in a good way, things are all things are romping forward at a pace now, aren't they? And
yes, I mean the little bit of a breather has given us space to sort of take pause and think a little about the direction we're going, and what you can expect of us going forward. And we reckon we're going to make a few adjustments to the way we do the podcast. We've been doing a magazine program now as far as the podcast is concerned for 18 months, and we haven't managed to get a podcast out each and every month. This month's podcast is outstanding, though. We still need to get that, so that's a bit behind time. But we're going to change things up a bit. We realised that we're probably making a bit of a rod for our own backs, a stick for our own backs, taking on new ideas, new topics for us to bang backwards and forwards every month, as we have been doing in the podcast, which has required us to do quite a lot of research, which has sometimes held it up a little bit, and maybe sometimes we haven't quite done justice to the subject. I think we've done pretty well generally, haven't misled anybody. But
well,
I thought, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's worth making the point that sometimes we go, do you know what, that would be a good thing to talk about.
Yep.
And then we go away and do some research and realise that actually we could make a 4-hour film about this, and we've got 20 minutes to half of
holy shit.
So sometimes, I think, yeah, as Mike said, I think, we've done reasonable justice, but sometimes, maybe maybe it was a bold move. Let's
But
put it
but
that
then
way.
this bing moment occurred in my brain. Think, well, hang about. How about getting somebody else to do the heavy lifting here? There are people that actually know this stuff out there.
Mm.
They're only a phone call, an email, or whatever away. I mean, actually get people who really know what they're talking about. I mean, that we can quiz, that we can, get to answer your questions on your behalf. Real archaeologists. And so we plan going forward for each monthly podcast to be a podcast interview. So it's less of Rupert and I talking stuff, but we will have done the research to make sure that we extract the proper information from the source. So you're getting proper stuff. That's not to say that we will be putting aside the happy banter. We're going to put that aside and put that somewhere else, which I'll tell you about at another time. But as far as the podcast is concerned, expect them to become a bit more authoritative. And I'm very excited about that. I really, really am. But like I say, the other stuff, our banter, our thoughts, our stuff we like to talk about and speculate about off our own bat, and the fun stuff as well. That's not going to disappear, but it's going to pop up elsewhere in other forms.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes. I mean, it's been a thing between us. We've probably voiced it every now and again, but certainly between us, it's been a thing that we have wanted to do more interviews, if you like, but more, getting archaeologists on for specials. And just because everything else is so time consuming in a good way, we love it, but it does take up so much time that it's been very difficult to to actually be in a space to pin down another archaeologist and say, can you come for, can we do an interview on whatever Wednesday week?
Yeah.
And so just changing the emphasis there, where it means that we can get some people, because it's extraordinary how many seriously, right up there archaeologists have published so many papers that never see the light of the public world, because it's something that other academics will go and reference the material whenever, but in terms of it coming out to the public, just doesn't happen. And so
we could rebrand this show. We could rebrand ourselves the Causewayed Enclosure guys. We'd still have enough material to keep us going for.
We could. Yeah.
But I was just helping make the point, Rupert. That there is so much stuff that you've never heard about that. Nevertheless, is there to tell a story. Actually, talking about causewayed enclosures, I'm dying to go up Crickley Hill.
Yes.
The site of the earliest known battle in Britain.
Yes.
About 3,500 BC?
Yes, you must do that and report back.
I'm going to do that. Anyway, I digress.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, I was looking at the map at Crickley Hill, and just below Crickley Hill, just south of it, there's another causewayed enclosure called something Peak Camp, right? I had a little search on Peak Camp, and there's one archaeological paper that has been dug. Guess who dug it? Guess who was there?
Is it Tim?
Yeah.
Professor Tim Darville.
Yeah.
Do you know what? That's something that's worth saying. But when we made the film down here, the Dolmens in the Languedoc, and so we were actually going to call that. I can't remember the original title. Its working title was The Ubiquity of Dolmens down here, and so just researching stuff, and literally stumbled across enclosures down in the Languedoc. I thought, I didn't know there were any, not just causewayed enclosures, but palisades. I didn't know there were any down here. Who's written this paper? Tim Darvill. So then we thought that maybe this should be about the ubiquity of Tim Darvill rather than the ubiquity of Dolmens. But yeah, he's done a bit of work, has Tim. Yeah.
What does Luke say? Causewayed enclosure, guys. It'll be the impossible to discern on the ground South Dorset. It'll be the impossible to discern on the ground South Dorset curse, guys. Next.
Yes,
nice one.
You speak wise words.
Yeah.
It is so true.
Luke also says the idea of getting others on is an excellent idea. So much talent out there that can be shared through your medium to us who work outside the academic sphere but would be interested. Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Actually, do you know what? This is something that Mike and I have various ideas of things that we want to include going forwards. But if any of you have any specific archaeological themes, things that you're particularly interested in, then do buzz us a message, because there are so many different.
Hello, Andy. Andy Cott. Hello.
Hello, Andy. There are so many different areas that people are researching, and it's astonishing how when people get into their own particular rabbit hole, but when you start focusing research that directly, and sometimes it can seem almost obscure, like how did somebody become so refined? And broadly, it's because when they do start researching something, they find out that actually there's an awful lot more information than you expected, and so you need to channel in there so that you're actually following a line of research rather than diluting everything that you're looking at. And so sometimes you can come up with a pretty obscure area of focus. So just if there's something you're interested in, then do buzz us a line, because we'll see if there's somebody we can have a good chat with on that.
I'm thinking there are two things. I want to go out and make a film very soon, as soon as I can, perhaps in the next 2 weeks. And there's two things that are appealing to me. One is to go down and investigate the Medway tombs, to go down and investigate Kit's Coty and Addington and Chestnuts and Coldrum specifically, because we now learn that Coldrum contained the oldest known burials in the British Isles. Yes, megalithic burials, that is, in the British Isles. Not only that, but not far from there at all, right close to where the Channel Tunnel Railway dives into the chalk down there in Kent, just below Chatham, were the remains of one of the, I think, the earliest Neolithic longhouse, wooden longhouse is down there.
I didn't know.
There's this whole, we sort of skip past Kent as if it really doesn't matter. Oh, it's megalithic. Megalithic. No, go to Wales. Go to Cornwall. Go. Geez, I've got to go to Orkney. No, Kent. There's something to be done there.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of that, and also there's a beautiful monument up in Snowdonia, not far from, not far from the coast, Welsh coast there, near Cardigan, I think up there, called Bryn Caravana, or Bryn Caravana. So it's just because it's really nice. It's beautiful to look at. It's a
Looks
beautiful,
like something
beautiful
out of
ring cairn. It looks like, you know, those frozen photographs of a drop of milk being dropped into milk. And it goes out into a
It does a bit.
like that.
Does a bit.
It's got that look to it, but it's also got fantastic views. So I'm thinking about, sort of going up there with a drone and my other gear and photographing that. However, right, so but the other thing that's in our pipeline, the definite thing, Rupert's coming over here. We are going together down to the Sunrise Over the Stones conference in Bournemouth on the 9th of November. And we're really excited about that.
We are.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be able to bring back some content from that as well.
That is the plan.
It's a day-long conference. We got Tim Darvill, would you believe, talking. Josh Pollard, Mike Parker Pearson, Gareth Chaffee, Melanie Pomeroy Kellinger,
Alison Sheridan,
Julian Richards, Janet Montgomery, Peter Marshall, Anne Woodward, Miles Russell, Margaret Cox, and just a stellar assortment of people what know a lot about stones, mate.
Yeah, it is very exciting, actually. So yes, you'll get feedback from that.
Once we de-pickled our brains, we will probably suffer from a little bit of overload. We will have choices to make after that, I think.
We will. It's terrible, actually. I'm one of the worst people at. I can go to a lecture with my biro and notepad, with the best of intentions of taking copious notes, and I just don't. I get thoroughly engrossed in the lecture and write 3 words.
Yeah, that used to be my habit as well.
Yeah.
So there's 2 ways of doing it. We could actually record it.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's
we will check. We will sort that kind of thing out. You know, maybe we can grab a few interviews. Who knows? That would be sweet. That would be sweet.
Yeah.
Yay. So we're just past the hour mark.
Yeah.
And I think we're really, unless anybody's got some blindingly brilliant question that will have us occupied for the next 2 hours, bung it up there now. If you've got a question, something that's that squeaking. Do you hear that squeaking sound?
It's like it clearly has
dog.
something.
Look, come here. Look. No, we're not going downstairs quite yet. He's really, really cross. Well, this is about as cross as you can get, isn't it? Yes. He's really fed up because we're not sitting on the sofa watching the television downstairs, which is where we should be.
Yeah.
No?
Yes,
So
folks, that is a household that is ruled by a dog.
Small dog. Right, I see no questions coming up.
In that case,
it is beholden to us to say thank you, you folks, you mega fans, for being there. And oh God, somebody's asked a question. It's Somerton. Are there any Neolithic artifacts here in West London?
Neolithic artifacts. Well, it depends what you call by West. What you mean by West London. There's the London Stone, of course. Ely.
I don't know where Mark lives.
Mark lives in Kew.
Oh, Kew. All right. Well, it's not far off.
The pagoda. No, you can't really call that West London, can you? That's up in Cannon Street.
It's in the city.
Yeah. I don't know. Hold that thought. I can't think of one.
But the London Stone, you probably know the London Stone is supposed to be a Neolithic artifact. Well, yeah. Oh, there is a Sarsen Stone in Ealing. Mark says.
Is there?
Well, we know now.
Yeah, okay, well done. I'll look that
Yeah.
one up. Actually, who? Oh no, that was Liverpool. Forget I said that. Yeah, well, there's a piece of
Mark was
research.
just wondering, is there anything he can get to on his bicycle?
Neolithic, no. Bronze Age, yes. And in fact, Richmond Park is there's a fair bit of Bronze Age stuff in Richmond Park. There's Henry VIII's Mound, which is near Petersham Lodge. Henry VIII's Mound is actually a Bronze Age mound, and they still keep there's a sighting hole that goes through the bushes, and if you stand on Henry VIII's Mound, inside there's benches and everything. They've made this nice little place where you can sit and be peaceful. But if you look through the hole cut in the bushes, you can see St Paul's Cathedral way off in the distance. But that's a Bronze Age mound.
Wow, you're a mine of information tonight, Rupert.
There's-
Mark says he'll photograph the Ealing Sarsen stone for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would definitely be interested, actually, because there is precious little left. You know, when you go to any big city, everything's just been built over or raised to the ground. And so when there are any bits and pieces left behind, it's good to know about them.
Well, that's about it, I think, folks. As I was saying, thank you for being there. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for making it all worthwhile.
Indeed.
And we hope it won't be too long before we've got something fresh and new for you. Yeah.
And podcast 19 is not that far away now.
Very good indeed. See you too, Dorman. Thank you. Bye-bye, Don. Yeah. Thanks,
Take
Mark.
care.
All right.
See you next time.
That's it then. Bye-bye.
All the